ring Frodo Baggins inherited from his uncle Bilbo is indeed the One Ring. After conferring with the wizard Gandalf, Frodo decides to leave the Shire and take the ring to Rivendell. Hello and welcome back to the Line Unbroken, my progression-style playthrough series of The Lord of the Rings, the card game. This is me beginning a Nightmare campaign with the Nightmare version of the first quest from the Lord of the Rings saga campaign, Shadow of the Past. As you can see, I didn't quite finish sorting everything out before starting recording because of Gandalf's delay. The sixth card from each opening hand needed to be on top of the deck rather than actually in said hand. Technically you could get Octagon to do it properly by just declaring that your initial opening hand doesn't count, and then shuffling everything back in and drawing 5 cards rather than 6, and then doing it again if you want to mulligan. But I find it easier to just pretend that I don't see the 6th card, put it back, and make my decision to mulligan based on what I can see. Or, of course, in this case, I'm playing with Gandalf, so the 6th card in my hand would in fact be the top card of my deck, which because of Gandalf I can see. So if I don't set the visibility of my deck until after I've chosen whether I'm going to mulligan, I don't get any extra information. So this is a pretty great opening hand. Nenya, Elrond's Council, Feint, Bilbo's alright. And here, Steward of Gondor right away is great, Master of the Forge right away is great, and Gildor's Council right away is great. So definitely want to keep those hands. For Nightmare, you are playing Nightmare mode. Forced when stage 3A is revealed. If Camul the Easterling is not in play, the first player searches the encounter deck discard pile and victory display for Camul the Easterling and adds it to the staging area. Shuffle the encounter deck. So that's a thing. Regular campaign setup is Mr. Underhill and Gandalf's Delay, and Gildor and Glorian and The Ring Draws Them are in the encounter deck. Quest setup, Buckleberry Ferry is set aside out of play, 1 Black Rider is in the staging area, Bag End is the active location. The encounter deck is shuffled. Frodo's friends insist on joining him in his adventure, but danger finds them sooner than anticipated when Black Riders appear in the Shire. When a player fails a hide test, each Nazgul enemy in the staging area engages that player, trigger forced effects after resolving this effect. The players cannot advance unless Bag End is in the victory display. So, Control N. Let's begin this game. Ooh, Mirror of Galadriel. It's nice, and of course that Hands Upon the Bow, which I had actually seen, but did not factor into my decision making. So, okay. I want to play Nenya immediately. It would be nice to get the mirror right away. If nothing else, the fact that I can play it from the top of my deck accelerates my deck. So, yeah, okay. Let's do that and see. Okay, there's another copy of the mirror. So let's just put the attachments this way around. I'm saving Bjorn's resource to possibly play that Feint, and Frodo's resource because I can use his ability. Oh, of course, because this is progression style for Nightmare, more things obviously had been released since the original Black Riders box by the time the Nightmare Black Riders became available. So in theory I could choose to use a different Frodo, but in fact at this point in the card pool I would have the choice between this Frodo and the Road Darkens Frodo, and I'm not planning on using the Road Darkens Frodo. I like this one, but that is something I can bear in mind in future, especially once we get further into this Nightmare campaign. So yes, I'm saving Frodo's resource for possibly his ability or possibly Fellowship of the Ring if this deck can find it. Over here, obviously, Steward of Gondor is kind of significant, so I probably want to just save for that and play the Master of the Forge. I can't afford Gildor's Council, which would be a decent opening play, but getting the Master of the Forge up and running immediately is going to be pretty handy. Okay, well, since I've got Steward of Gondor already in my hand, I will take the Cram. And I should probably play it probably onto Haldir. He's the most likely to benefit from an extra action. So, with that in mind, okay. Now, I would prefer not to immediately advance the quest, which gives me, since there's only one quest point on the quest card, gives me a fairly narrow range to aim for. I also need to be ready for possible hide tests. But of course I do have Galadriel with Nenya who can help out with those. So definitely, it's quest 2, 5, 7, and I'm hoping that this should work out okay. Reveal. Green Hill Country. Okay. While it's in the staging area, add 1 to each hide X value. Travel, the first player makes a hide 1 test. And, okay, Doomed 2, the first player must either exhaust the One Ring and reveal an encounter card or make a hide 3 test, which would in fact be a hide 4 test because of Green Hill Country. I can't do anything about the Doomed 2. But, okay, so obviously I could exhaust the ring and reveal a card. Or I could make the hide 3 test. Could do it with Galadriel. Could potentially add to willpower with Elrond's Council. It would be risky though. So I'm thinking maybe I just exhaust the ring and reveal a card. Or of course I could use Frodo's ability, spend a resource and exhaust the ring to shuffle the card back into the deck and reveal a different card. That would negate the Doomed as well. So, I mean, let's give that a go. So actually I can take back those 2 points of threat on each side. I shuffle card back in. And instead get Peril Hide 2. When revealed, if you have failed a hide test this phase, remove each character you control from the quest. Okay. So I'll send Haldir and... No, I'll keep Denethor up. But it's hide 2 plus 1 for Green Hill Country, so hide 3. Okay. 3, 7, 11. That's failed and so obviously the plan was I could use Nenya to add Galadriel's willpower to Haldir. I could also use Elrond's Council to add another one to him. That would get him up to 7, which would have been fine if it was just 2 cards, but the third card screwed me over there. So if I let this go, this Black Rider will engage this deck, which this deck is not supposed to engage any enemies at all, ideally. It would be difficult for me to deal with that in the long run. it's obviously it's possible for me to get together enough attack, but it would be difficult. Also, that would take the threat of the Black Rider out of the staging area, and I would make more progress than I want to. So basically this is a scoop, is what I'm saying. Okay. I feel a little bad about taking such an early scoop, because I could have kept going with that. I still stood something of a chance, at least potentially, but I would just rather get a bit of a cleaner start to a Nightmare campaign. So, new opening hands. This one is still pretty great. Nenya right away, Bows of the Galadrim to power up Haldir. Very handy. Here I don't have Steward of Gondor, but I do have the Master of the Forge. So, it's reasonable. Control N. And, ooh, a Gondorian shield as well. That's... I mean, the thing is, how likely is Denethor to be defending anytime soon? Would this deck get Cram? It was Cram. So here I'm going to be playing the Master of the Forge and the Cram, and that's probably it. Over here, because I could... The thing is, of course, playing from the top of my deck speeds up my deck. That is a thing. So I could play the shield just to accelerate my deck a bit. And then I could also probably prioritize getting out a bow rather than saving for the feint. Get Nenya into play. Or I could potentially get the mirror and go digging in my deck. But, yeah, no, I think it's probably better if I just start with this. One notable point is that with the Bow of the Galadrim, Haldir attacks enemies not engaged with him for 5. Bjorn also attacks for 5, and 10 attack is enough to kill a Black Rider right at the start of the game, so that is very handy. So yeah, let's play that Master of the Forge and go digging for attachments once again. Okay, Song of Battle is the only available option, but that's fine. I can put the Cram onto Haldir again. And once again, we have 4 threat in the staging area. So one thing here is I could send Haldir on the quest, knowing I can ready him with the Cram, and then if I don't end up using Balin for a hide test, I could exhaust him when I play this We Are Not Idle to gain an extra resource. That could be useful. So if we look at this, like 2, 5, it's going to be 7 willpower again, I think. That's just kind of where I am. So it's a question of whether I send Haldir on the quest, knowing that I will be using the Cram to take out the Black Rider, and potentially getting an extra resource from Balin, or send Balin on the quest so that I can save the Cram for later. And I think in the circumstances I am actually going to send Haldir, so okay, 7 willpower sent on the quest, and we reveal Black Steed. Okay, I'm planning to kill this Black Rider anyway, so that's not too bad. It does search though. Green Hill Country again, and East Farthing. So that's added 5 threat to the staging area. Total of 9 threat in the staging area. I can use Galadriel and Nenya to add 4 willpower, so I make 2 progress. Not enough to advance the quest. That's a little frustrating, but okay, whatever. Play We Are Not Idle. So I exhaust Balin to add a resource to Haldir and draw a card. Because this way I will be able to afford Gildor's Council next round. Now I engage this Black Rider, and under the circumstances I'm just going to use Mr. Underhill right away. Because the thing is, Mr. Underhill only applies to an enemy that's engaged with you, so this deck is not supposed to engage enemies ever. So, in principle, every round that Frodo is on this side of the table, Mr. Underhill is useless. Whereas a feint, I don't have the resource for it right now anyway, but in principle, a feint can work on any round. So Mr. Underhill, for my particular setup, Mr. Underhill is less flexible than a feint. And obviously this allows Bjorn to save some hit points by not defending. So that's fine. Now I attack for 10. Get rid of this Black Rider. Denethor. Take a look at the top card of the encounter deck. Okay, Peril Hide 2, which will be Hide 3 because of the Green Hill Country and the staging area. But it doesn't add any threat to the staging area unless I fail the test, in which case the East Farthing would get a resource and thus more threat. But that does mean that if I leave this there, I know exactly, so long as I can pass the test, I know exactly how much threat would be in the staging area. Or even if I calculate on the basis that I am going to fail the test, that would also be an option. Because there are no Black Riders in play, they can't... I don't have to worry about the... each Nazgul enemy in the staging area engages that player, and then attacking from forced effects. I would have the concern of, if you fail to high test this phase, remove each character you control from the quest, though. So, it'd be what, 5, or if I fail the test, 7. I would want to be questing for 8. Which would be difficult if this deck removed everything. So I guess I kind of have to move that to the bottom, because I don't think I can really deal with it. Okay, Control N. Daron's Runes, that's nice. Master of the Forge gets me Thror's Map, I think. King Under the Mountain is great, but Thror's Map allows for some potential shenanigans. And play Daron's Runes, and I'll discard a spare Song of Battle. I can use one of Frodo's resources to play the Song of Battle that I have onto Balin. put a cram onto Haldir again. So... So here's the thing. Now, Thrall's Map would be really nice. But I also want to be playing Gildor's Council. I could use We Are Not Idle to get that one extra resource, but then I couldn't quest with Balin. So, would that be okay or not? I can get this bow onto Haldir. I think I want to try for this. Okay, there's Steward of Gondor as well. So I can immediately play that onto Balin and exhaust it to get the resources back. And let's put Celebrian Stone onto Frodo. And that makes up for the willpower I lost by exhausting Balin. And let's put Thrall's Map also onto Balin. Over here, second bow for Haldir. I mean, I'm tempted to play the second shield somewhere. Well, onto Gandalf. Just, again, to speed up my deck a bit. So, and, I mean, in principle it could be useful in the future. Even if the main reason is, as I say, to just speed up my deck. Okay. And so now I do want to play Gildor's Council. So, let's see, I can quest for 4, 7, 9. There's 5 threat in the staging area. I'm revealing 1 card. So 9 might be a bit much. If I make it 7. I mean, here's the thing, if I get 0 threat, which is possible, then I would advance the quest, which I don't want to do because I want to kind of turtle on this stage until I'm ready. So I mean, I could possibly get away with underquesting, but I think maybe instead if I just go 6, on the other hand, I don't know, like, actually no, so if I just quest for 5, I absolutely cannot clear Bag End. Unless, like, there's 3 threat and then I use Nenya, which is possible, but I think this is reasonable. Because, okay, Stockwoods. That's great. That adds 4 threat. So I'll use Nenya to add 4 threat. I suppose I could have just used Denethor in advance, but this is fine. So the point is, I make no progress. Bag End is still in play. It's not in the victory display, which means it's impossible for me to advance the quest, and I can use Thrall's Map to go to a different location, which means that I no longer have to be careful about my questing, because I can't advance until Bag End is in the victory display. So I can just wait until I'm ready before traveling to it. So, okay, Stockwoods limits the number of characters you can commit to a hide test. That's not that bad, actually, because I'm relying on just a bunch of strong, high willpower characters, whereas Green Hill Country, that's more of a problem, so let's go there. And of course, Thrall's Mount means I don't care about travel costs. So that's that. Use Denethor. Look at the top card of the encounter deck. Starting with the first player, each player makes a Hide 2 test. Each player who fails this Hide test raises the threat by 5. So, I could take the threat, is the thing. And this doesn't add threat to the staging area, which could be handy. I might prefer not to take the threat, but I think I'm going to leave this. I'm going to accept that, you know, my threat's going up. But I do have threat reduction in this deck. It'll turn up at some point. And that card does not impede my questing. And, well, I suppose if I fail the high test, it does add to the East Farthing. So actually it would impede my questing. Unless I passed the tests. But okay, so in fact, let's move it to the bottom. If the East Farthing wasn't in play, then I probably would just let that one go through. Okay, Master of the Forge. Campfire Tales is nice to see as well. Maybe I should have played the Campfire Tales first. Gather information would have been really nice, but I've found Fellowship of the Ring, so next round I can get that. And I will play the Campfire Tales now. Dying Mark. And okay, well, there is a Gather Information. So let's play Gather Information right away. And since Bilbo is now on top of my deck, play Bilbo. So, no, wait, I just played Gather Information from the top of my deck. I can only do that once per phase. So that's not an option. So instead, okay, let's see. Well, Light of Valinor is significant, allowing Haldir to quest without exhausting. But right this second, I think it's going to be better to get an Arwen, same amount of willpower, but of course, because of Galadriel, the round she enters play, she doesn't exhaust to quest, which is actually a bad thing for Arwen, because I want her to exhaust to trigger her response and make Denethor a 6 defense sentinel. So the sooner I get her into play, the better, because the sooner Denethor is ready to do his thing. So, with that in mind, I guess there's nothing else I can do. Over here, I can put a Dunedain Mark onto Haldir. I should possibly start keeping track of stats. So, remember that Frodo's getting an extra 2 willpower. I'm sometimes inconsistent with these tokens. Sometimes I'll put them for the bonus and sometimes I'll put the full amount, as in this case. Haldir attacks for 8, so long as the enemy is not engaged with this deck, which it shouldn't be. And I may as well play this Galadhrim Minstrel as well. So it's top 5 cards. There's Gather Information again. And Unseen Strike and Hands Upon the Bow, both potentially useful. I'm trying to remember if the weaker Nazgul in this quest can be killed with a 9, because obviously Hands Upon the Bow would work for that with Haldir, whereas otherwise I'll just take the Unseen Strike. It'll be fine, I'm sure. Okay, so now back end is 0. There's 6 threat in the staging area. requesting to gather information. 4, 7, 9, 11, 13. And we reveal, okay. So, peril height 2. Let's just exhaust Arwen, her ability targets Denethor, for this hide test. And that's 3 threat, so I will use Nenya to add her willpower, Galadriel's willpower rather, which also applies to the questing, and means that I pass the hide test, and the card for the second deck is another East Farthing. So that's just another 2 threat added to the staging area, so I'm making 9 progress. 4 on Green Hill Country, and 5 on Gather Information, which goes to the victory display. So let's search, and yeah, let's take Gandalf's staff, just to make everything go that bit quicker. Over here, let's see. I mean, I could just grab this deck's copy of Gather Information. I could grab another Dunedain Mark to get Haldir powered up that bit quicker, but of course I do have the Master of the Forge digging out my attachments. I could grab King Under the Mountain, but same deal. Secret Paths could be nice just as a something to alleviate risks in questing, or Gildor's Council, which it might be a while before I can afford it. Well, a couple of rounds. Or an Errand Rider to be able to redistribute those extra resources. I'm actually going to take the Errand Rider, I think. Because also, I have Master of the Forge digging out my attachments, and I have Galadriel Minstrel digging out my events. I mean, well, it's only once, but I have 3 Galadriel Minstrels in the deck. I have nothing that helps me find my allies faster. So, okay, let's Thrall's map our way to the Stockwoods. And then all that remains is for Denethor to use his ability. Okay, the Marish is fine. 3 threat, no big deal. Frodo crosses the table. And Control N. Okay. And over here, of course. Well, looks like I found my Gather Information anyway. Search the top 5 cards. Well, I guess I'll take the Lembas. It may come in handy. Exhaust Steward. Definitely play an Errand Rider. Play Gather Information. Play Fellowship of the Ring. So unless I chump block, which I shouldn't do, all my heroes, apart from Bjorn because he's immune to player card effects, get +1 willpower. And I guess I will play the Lembas as well. The Lembas can go on to Gandalf. Haldir already has Cram for his readying, and I do have Light of Valinor ready to go. And okay, let's see. I do want to save 1 resource in case I want that feint. But Gandalf's staff is fine. And now I probably do go for Light of Valinor. so Haldir will not exhaust to quest. It's still useful to have the cram on him, because it means that if the situation arises that there are a couple of enemies that he can use his ability and also attack alongside Bjorn. So, okay. There's 4 threat in the staging area, and I know that the first card is just a 3 threat location. So let's see, questing... And I know that it's a 3 threat location, so it doesn't trigger any hide tests from this deck, so I don't need to worry about that. I forgot to quest with my Minstrel last round, but okay, anyway, 5, 8, 11, 12, 14, 18, obviously going to gather information, 19, I want to drop my threat, actually, well, okay, actually no, I'll take that back. I will be playing the Elrond's Council, but just on the off chance there's a hide test, it might change where I apply the willpower. It does not, okay. So that's fine then. And I'm questing for 19 against 7, 10. So 9 progress, 5 here, 4 on gather information. And let's go searching for things. I could grab a test of will at this point. That could be handy. Or, you know, Shadowfax. I'm thinking Shadowfax, actually. Action advantage is going to be pretty significant if hide tests ever actually happen. And over here... Now it would make more sense to maybe grab a Gildor's Council. In preparation. Okay, and obviously I will Thrall's map to the Green Hill Country. And Galadriel did not have to use Nenya, so I can use her ability, lower threat, and draw a card. And let's just keep speeding through my deck a bit. Denethor can use his ability to look at the top card of the encounter deck. It is a Black Rider. Let's not have the Black Rider. And I can use this Errand Rider to transfer a resource from Frodo to Galadriel, and I can use Gandalf's Staff to add a resource to Galadriel. And Control N. It's not that I couldn't handle the Black Rider, obviously, but you know, just the hide test would be annoying. And so why deal with it if I don't have to? Actually, you know what, I've changed my mind. Make it a resource from Balin to Galadriel rather than Frodo. Generally, obviously, it makes sense to move resources off Frodo because he doesn't need that many. But in this case, I'm about to play Shadowfax, and Frodo can help pay for that. And of course, his resources were already coming over here because he crosses the table, whereas Balin's weren't unless I sent them. So, 1, 2, 3, Shadowfax. Obviously, I can't play Arwen here. I think it's time for the mirror. I could play the Unexpected Courage first. I mean, it's a decent question. Is there actually anything else I could get that I would want more than Unexpected Courage? I'm not sure there is. Maybe a Test of Will? Okay, yeah, I'll play the Unexpected Courage onto Denethor, just so that cannot be discarded by the mirror. So now, using the Mirror of Galadriel, let's grab a Test of Will. And I shuffle, and a random discard hits Gondorian Shield. That's fine. I can exhaust Gandalf's Staff to add a resource to Galadriel. Or I suppose I could get that resource with an Errand Rider, just in case I want to use the Staff for something else. Staff is more flexible than the Errand Rider. So, okay, that should be fine. Now, obviously I can play Gildor's Council this round, but I don't think I want to. I think I want to save this Gildor's Council for later in the game. I've got things pretty well under control at this point, I would say. I could play the second Master of the Forge, but there is the risk of me being penalised for having too many allies on the next stage of the quest, and just the one is getting me through my deck fast enough. So there's 7 threat in the staging area. Quest for 5, 9, 11, 14, 15. 15 sound reasonable. I think I can probably go up to 18. So, 18, and we reveal Dark Horsemen. Yeah, they are. It does take 10 to kill them, not just 9, so... right, yes, Peril Hide 2. So let's just send Gandalf on this hide test. There's nothing adding to hide tests. This only applies while it's in the staging area. So hide 2. 2 threat, not a problem. I pass the test. And Stock Woods. Okay, so that's added 7 threat to the staging area. I make 4 progress, which does clear the Green Hill country. I can Thrall's map my way to the Stock Woods. Maybe I should have not gotten rid of that Black Rider. Just because location threat builds up in the staging area. Enemy threat I can get rid of quicker. So, let's see. Well, under the circumstances, I think it's probably for the best that... Oh, in fact, yeah. The second deck is not below the engagement cost of this, so Unseen Strike wouldn't allow me to one-shot it, even if I didn't want to possibly save the Unseen Strike for something more dangerous. Denethor can just defend. Okay. Gildor is going as a shadow card. I can accept it. Drop this text threat and draw a card. And Bjorn and Haldir attack. So that's fine. Gandalf's staff adds a resource to Galadriel. Denethor exhausts to look at this Black Rider. Okay, and in keeping with what I was just saying, I think I'll leave it there because I can cope with making a hide test, or at least I should be able to, and I can get rid of the Black Rider faster than I can get rid of a location. Control N. And secret paths is nice. Master of the Forge gets me King Under the Mountain or the Last Dunedain Mark. I think it's the last one, right? I forgot to add the extra token here, but yeah, there are two so far. So, okay, since it's the last Dunedain Mark, I'm going to take it. Because, of course, this is the one which gets Haldir up to 10 attack, which means that he can kill in one hit anything in this quest other than Camel the Easterling. And he can do Camel the Easterling with the help of Unseen Strike. So, it looks like that's all this deck can do. Unless I want to play the second Master of the Forge. Which I could. No, let's still just leave it. Transfer a resource from Frodo to Galadriel. And yeah, let's just use the mirror. So it's the top 10 cards of my deck. And I'll take the Greeting. Shuffle. And a random discard Dwarven Tomb. Well, that's fine. The Dwarven Tomb is there to retrieve the things that I otherwise would random discard. I could just pay full cost for Bofa from the top of my deck. That's an option. At some point I should really grab Bilbo or just the Wizard Pipe directly, because not having the Wizard Pipe is actually kind of hampering me. Yeah, I'm just going to pay full price for Bofa. And there's Bilbo. Okay. I'm also going to play a Handmaiden and drop this deck's threat by 1. There is 7 threat in the staging area, and I know that the first card is a Black Rider, so there's 11 threat in the staging area plus 1 more card, and this deck will have to make a Hide 2 test. So let's see, I can quest for 3. Well, let's see, definitely 4, 10, 13, 14, 19, and I can send Balin on the hide test. That seems reasonable. Or it could be 17 and I send Frodo on the hide test. That also seems reasonable. I definitely want to make 5 progress though, so... Alright, this way around. Hide with Balin. I could send Haldir as well. I could send Denethor as well. I really wanted to make it more secure, but it should be fine. Just Balin. Yep, 2 treacheries, so that is absolutely fine. Balin passes the hide test. And then, okay, starting with the first player, each player makes a hide 2 test. Each player who fails this hide test raises the threat by 5. How about no? I mean, I don't know, I probably could pass the tests if I want to save the test of will, but I think I'd rather just cancel this. Okay, so I make enough progress, 8. So now as soon as I add back end to the victory display, I will advance the quest, and I think it's about that time. This deck I feel is better at making hide tests, so I want this deck to be first player when I advance the quest. And now obviously I engage this Black Rider, I deal it a shadow card, and then Haldir uses his ability to attack it preemptively, and it's dead. Gandalf's Staff, a resource onto Galadriel. Use Galadriel. Oh, there's the Wizard Pipe as well. Use Denethor. I'm okay with that. So yeah, okay. Control N. And right. Oh yeah, again I forgot to add the attack token to Haldir. And there's another Bilbo. It never rains but it pours. Right. Master of the Forge. Now I will take King Under the Mountain. So, okay, let's immediately play Bilbo from the top of my deck. And okay, there's a test of will there, but it's going to be shuffled away, probably. Grab a Wizard Pipe and shuffle and find another Bilbo. Okay, now let's exhaust the mirror. Search the top 10, grab a test of will. And shuffle. I guess the test of will actually wasn't such a big deal, but okay, whatever. Use Frodo's resource to pay for the Wizard Pipe. Which, what the hell? Octagon / my computer doing weird things. And... yeah, I mean, without that Handmaiden, nothing else I really want to do, so I guess I'll just exhaust the Wizard Pipe to put the test of will on top of my deck, just in case. Exhaust Steward of Gondor, add 2 resources, play King Under the Mountain. Exhaust King Under the Mountain, I think Balin needs more space. King Under the Mountain, I look at these 2 cards, discard the Song of Battle, play the Campfire Tales. To keep drawing, okay, I mean, this works out effectively because obviously I could have waited before using the Wizard Pipe. And, well, actually, I suppose, yeah, I would have... If I waited before using the wizard pipe until later, and therefore after this Campfire Tales was played, then I would have just drawn and seen that there was already a Test of Will on top of my deck, so I wouldn't have bothered to wizard pipe the other Test of Will in place of the existing Test of Will. Yeah, okay. And I guess that's it. So, 7 threat in the staging area. I only need to make 1 progress to clear bag end. Bilbo does not exhaust the quest. I definitely will have to make a height test when I advance the quest. Definitely questing for 3, 4, 6, 10, 14, 16. I mean, that's already more than enough. The highest threat card in the encounter deck is 4 threat. It's the Black Riders. Or I think Camel the Easterling is also 4 threat. So really I own... And the first card I know is the Treachery, which puts a Nazgul into play, and I'm going to put it into play engaged with this deck. So it won't add threat to the staging area. Which leaves 1 card, so I know there can be at most 11 threat in the staging area. Which means I only actually need to quest for 12. So I could hold back... I don't know what would make sense to hold back. If I want to just remove 4 willpower, I guess Gandalf? Sure, let's take Gandalf off the quest. So I'm questing for 12. We reveal a Piercing Cry. So search the encounter deck and discard pile for a Nazgul enemy. Either add it to the staging area or put it into play engaged with the first player. But it's not revealed, so I don't have to make a hide test for it. So that's fine. And we shuffle, and then second card. Doom 2, the first player must either exhaust the One Ring and reveal an encounter card, or make a hide 3 test. Or I could use one of those tests of will that I have. I mean, or I could probably make the hide 3 test. It's a fair point. I mean, well, I just said I know the highest threat cards in this deck are 4 threat. So hide 3 could be at most 12. When I advance, I will have to make a hide 2 test for Black Rider, so that could be at most 8 plus 1 for each of my allies, so 12 again. How much willpower do I actually have here? Gandalf is 4, and he can go on both of these potential hide tests. And the odds of it actually being 12 are pretty low, so... Yeah, I mean... Also, both of the tests will be in the quest phase, so if I use Nenya and add the willpower to Gandalf, who can be on both hide tests, then that means basically Gandalf would be 9. So... You know, if it comes to it. So, okay, 4, 6. Let's just go with that. And yeah, that's only 4 threat revealed. So, I passed the test. So there's still only 7 threat in the staging area. I make 5 progress. This goes to the victory display. 4 additional progress here. This deck controlled one Hobbit hero, so draw a card, and I advance the quest. As Frodo watched, he saw something dark pass across the lighter space between two trees and then halt. It looked like the black shade of a horse led by a smaller black shadow. The black shadow stood close to the point where they had left the path, and it swayed from side to side. Frodo thought he heard the sound of snuffling. The shadow bent to the ground and then began to crawl towards him. When revealed, the first player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a black rider, reveals it cannot be cancelled, and adds it to the staging area. Shuffle the encounter deck. When a player makes a hide test, add 1 to the total threat for each ally that player controls. When a player fails a hide test, each Nazgul enemy in the staging area engages that player. Trigger force effects after resolving this effect. So, let's grab a black rider. I will have to make a hide 2 test with +4 to the threat because of my 4 allies. But that's fine. It's not going to be a problem. What does the Marish do if I fail a hide test? Shuffle a Nazgul enemy from the discard pile into the encounter deck. Not that big a deal. So, yes, hide 2. 4, 6, 8. And it is still the quest phase, so I can use Nenya if I want to. Yeah, I don't need to. 3, 7. So then let's go to the East Farthing. It is a lot of quest points, but it should be fine. And engage this other Black Rider. So now Haldir can use his ability to immediately take out one of the Black Riders. Denethor will defend the other one. Attacking enemy gets +1, +2 instead of defending players failed a high test this round. That puts it up to... I haven't failed a high test, so that puts it up to 6 attack against Denethor's 6 defense. So that's fine. And I will discard the Cram to ready Haldir, and he can kill the Black Rider by himself, or Bjorn could help, but it doesn't really matter. Galadriel will exhaust, lower my threat by 1, and draw a card. Staff for a resource. Errand Rider for a resource. I'm going to move this deck even further across so that I will have room for Frodo. Denethor takes a look at the top card of the encounter deck, which is Doom 2, starting with the last player. Each player must either return a Nazgul enemy or make a hide 2 test. I don't want to make the hide tests. I could cancel it, but I'd rather not take the threat from the Doomed. Although, again, I mean, I could. So, I mean, maybe I accept it and just cancel. Actually, you know, that's probably reasonable. I'll figure it out in the coming round, how much sense it makes, but I think it probably makes sense. Control N. So, Steward of Gondor, Master of the Forge, King under the Mountain. Top 5 cards for the Master of the Forge. I'll take the Lembas. And shuffle, and top 2 cards for King Under the Mountain. I will obviously take Hands Upon the Bow, discard Steward of Gondor. And... okay, well, I need more readying on Haldir, just on the off chance. So Lembas, I guess that's it. Now is when I want to play the Guildhall's Council. So that's fine. And it definitely could be time for a greeting. Yes, so I said I'm going to play the Guildhall's Council and then probably just cancel the treachery. I'll take some threat. But that's okay. I can deal with the threat. So I pay 3 for this greeting and drop this deck's threat by 6. It's more important that this deck is low threat because it doesn't want to engage anything ever. And is there anything else I can even do? Well, I can use the mirror. That's basically it. How much progress do I actually need to make? 14, 23. Okay. I'm not adding any threat to the staging area. There's 5 threat in the staging area. I need to make 23 progress to advance the quest. If I do advance the quest, I will immediately have to make a hide test, but I won't be penalized for having allies on that one. So it could probably be done by, like, well, in fact, it could be done by Haldir and Galadriel with Nenya. So, how much can I quest for? Is the very simple question. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 17, 20, 23, 24. That's not enough. So okay, 24. I need 23 progress. So oh right, yeah, I only need 28. This is fine because I can use Galadriel and Nenya ahead of time. Well, at any point really. But I specifically add Galadriel's willpower to Haldir, who is questing without exhausting, of course, but also he's going to make the hide test when I advance the quest, so it's all fine. So I will pay the 3 resources for Guildhall's Council now. Technically I should have done that before committing everyone to the quest. So, reveal Doom 2, and I'm going to cancel it. So, there we go. That's the only card I reveal because of Guildhall's Council. I'm questing for 29 against 5 threat. I could also have used Secret Paths to reduce the threat in the staging area. That could have been a thing. But in fact, I'm making enough progress. I'm making it 24. So 9 here and 15 here. I've lost the count. There we go. And we advance. When revealed, add Buckleberry Ferry to the staging area, and because of the Nightmare card, search the encounter deck and discard discard pile and victory display for Camel the Easterling. Add him to the staging area as well. After several close calls with Black Riders, Frodo can tell they are hunting him. The Hobbit's only hope of escaping their dangerous pursuers is to cross the Brandywine River, if they can just make it to Buckleberry Ferry before they are caught. So, Buckleberry Ferry. I need Camel the Easterling, who is here. Oh, he's actually 5 threat, so he is the highest threat of any card in the quest, and there is not a Black Rider in the encounter deck anymore. I know for a fact that I'm about to need one. Actually, hang on. I'm just going to take a quick look here. Okay, so there's a lot of treacheries there, but it would still be possible for a hide test to be failed if I just sent Denethor on it. So I will send Haldir as planned. But that is, of course, something which can be useful anytime you have to search the encounter deck and discard pile for a card. That means you get to look at the encounter deck. So if it's a case like this, you're going to have to make a hide test, which I know I'm going to, because there you go, search the encounter deck and discard pile for a Black Rider, reveals it cannot be cancelled, then adds it to the staging area, shuffle the encounter deck. Same as everything, but also after a player makes a successful hide test, place X progress on a non-unique location in play. X is twice the number of players in the game. So yeah, anytime that you need to search the encounter deck, that means you can look at it. So if I had looked and seen that the deck was entirely treacheries, then I would know. In fact, treacheries have no threat at all. I would know that I could pass a hide test without sending any characters on it at all. So that would have been very valuable information, because tying the willpower is actually okay for hide tests. So that would have been very valuable information. As it is, there are 3 locations in there. They're each 3 threat, so it is still for the best that I sent Haldir, just to be sure. He's got Galadriel's willpower added, and of course they're both +1 from Fellowship of the Ring, so it's a total of 8. So he cannot actually fail this. Okay, and I just passed a hide test, which means I can place 4 progress on a location in the staging area. I will obviously choose the Marish, which is explored, and then travel to the East Farthing, because Buckleberry Ferry, while there's at least one other location in play, the players cannot travel here. So, okay, I don't have to engage Camel the Easterling, which is fine by me. I do have to engage this Black Rider, but that also should be okay. So, okay, obviously I engage the Black Rider. Deal a shadow card. Discard the Lembas to ready Haldir. So I could just use Haldir's ability to take out the Black Rider, and that would be fine. Or I could use Haldir's ability plus Unseen Strike to attack into the staging area and take out Camel the Easterling. But then I wouldn't have Haldir available to attack the Black Rider, so I would have to attack it with just Bjorn and Gandalf, who wouldn't be able to kill it. So, in fact, the better option is I've also got Hands Upon the Bow in my hand. Just take out the Black Rider now, and if Camel's threat is a problem next round, then I can just Hands Upon the Bow him. So, shift some resources around. Galadriel needs all of the resources to play threat reduction events. Denethor, take a look at the top card of the encounter deck. It is not a location, but it surges. So, get rid of it. Oh, incidentally, Camel the Easterling, I didn't actually read his text. It's probably not going to matter other than the stats. but cannot have non-Morgul attachments, gets minus 30 engagement cost while the one ring is exhausted. Forced at the beginning of the refresh phase, the engaged player makes a hide 2 test. If the engaged player fails the hide test, Camel the Easterling makes an immediate attack. So, right, yes, Denethor, exhausting again. Okay, but this also surges. So, again, I'm going to get rid of it. In principle here, obviously, I'm just looking, since I can't have any other locations in play if I want to travel to Buckleberry Ferry, in principle I'm just looking for anything that's not a location, but something that is not a location but which surges, that doesn't help, because I mean, if you use Denethor and you see a card that surges, why would you not put it to the bottom of the deck? Unless you have, like, the door is closed, some means of cancelling the entire card, including the surge. You'll be revealing the next card down anyway. So yeah, also, let's just do this. And I'm just going to take the Dwarven Tomb, because your safety. This way, if I discard the Test of Will, then I can get it back. I didn't discard the Test of Will, so that's great. Control N. And okay. So over here, Steward of Gondor, more resources that I don't need. Master of the Forge first, and then King Under the Mountain. It's the better way around of doing it. Grab the superfluous King Under the Mountain. And shuffle, and yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll keep the Daeron's Runes and discard the Errand Rider, and I'll play the Daeron's Runes. And discard King Under the Mountain. And okay, it's this deck to plan first. So let's Wizard Pipe, a Greeting, and then play it. This time I'll drop this deck's threat at 31. And, I mean, sure, why not? Use the mirror. Yeah, I'm just going to take the Handmaiden who's on the top of the deck and shuffle. And a random discard, Nenya. Totally fine with that. And then let's play the Handmaiden. A little bit of extra willpower and drop this deck's threat by 1. Exhaust Gandalf's... well, no. It probably won't make a difference at this point, actually, but use the Errand Rider to put a resource on Galadriel, so I have that Test of Will available. And that should all be fine. And I'm now going to play... I no longer have to worry about how many allies I have in play, so I will now play the second Master of the Forge. And there are no locations in there. Not locations, attachments. And then I'll play the Minstrel. Search the top 5 cards and take the Daeron's Runes. And shuffle and play Daeron's Runes to to draw 2, discard Steward of Gondor, and then play Campfire Tales. Each deck draws 1. And play We Are Not Idle to draw another 1. There's Gildor's Council, that's what I was looking for. Okay, and now I'm going to use Denethor right now. Again, it surges. And I've just got... That's 4 cards that surge that I've sunk to the bottom of the encounter deck. This is ridiculous. But okay, whatever. We'll just see how it goes. There's 8 threat in the staging area. And I'm going to play Gildor's Council. And quest for 5, 9, 11, 13, 15, 16, 17. I do need to make 9 progress. 21. 21. I'm only revealing 1 card. Okay, Dooms 2. The first player must either exhaust the 1 ring and reveal an encounter card or make a hide 3 test. Okay. Dooms 2. But I'm actually just going to play a test of will. Cancel that. And it looks like all my digging with Denethor, well, I suppose since it all surged, it didn't really make a difference because I would have gotten to that card eventually and still not revealed a location. But maybe I didn't actually pay attention to what the cards I was sinking did. They might have caused more hide tests. So, yeah, I'm questing for 21 against 8. I make 13 progress. 9 here, 4 here, but it doesn't matter. This is immune to player card effects, so I can't ignore the travel cost. But the travel cost is fine. Let's just make a hide 3 test. So, Gandalf for 4. Handmaiden 6. I think that's fine, actually. Yeah, see? Totally fine. Play Elrond's Council. Drop my threat by 3. Exhaust Galadriel to drop my threat by 1 and draw a card. Not going to bother engaging Camel the Easterling. I can just play Unseen Strike and use Haldir's ability to take him out, because that puts Haldir up to 13 attack against enemies with an engagement cost higher than this deck's threat, which Camel's is. And I can use Gandalf's Staff in addition to moving Frodo. So there we go. And Control N. All I have to do is explore Buckleberry Ferry to win the game. So it's all good. Okay, well, let's exhaust the Master of the Forge and see if there are any attachments left in this deck. This deck of 4 cards. No, there are not. Let's do this. I will not need 2 more unseen strikes. Can play that additional errand rider. I should have done that last round. And move to Frodo's resources over to Galadriel. Play the Minstrel. And let's grab that Secret Paths. Only 1 card left in the deck, which I will therefore not bother shuffling. And okay, so if I can Wizard Pipe the Dwarven Tomb and play it to get back a Galadriel's Greeting, which I play in turn, to reduce this deck's threat by 6, down to 27. And I think that's going to be all I can do threat reduction wise. I think I've used up all of my Elrond's Councils. Yeah, all my Elrond's Councils. Oh, there might be 1 more Dwarven Tomb in there though, which I could use to get back an Elrond's Council. So let's just grab that and shuffle and do a random discard. Gandalf's Staff, totally fine with that. And okay, so actually I could, if I wanted to be sensible about it, maybe I should Dwarven Tomb a Test of Will, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. Dwarven Tomb, Elrond's Council. I'll play it in the quest phase so I get the extra point of willpower, not that that's really going to matter. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 19, 22, 25, 26, 27, 28 willpower against an empty staging area. And we reveal Green Hill Country, not a problem. Stock Road, not a problem. 6 threat, I make 22 progress. I only needed 9. I can just finish off by using Galadriel one last time. Draw my threat and draw a card. Oh no, I should have done it on this deck. Empty the deck. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I've explored Buckleberry Ferry. And I win the game. Pretty creditably, I would say. Yeah, that worked out all very much fine. Nightmare doesn't do anything else to the campaign, in fact in general, but I'm pretty sure that's a... Yeah, I don't think the Nightmare cards do... The Nightmare versions of the quest change the campaign setup at all. I might be wrong about that, but in general I don't think they do, and I feel like that's maybe a missed opportunity to have extra Nightmare campaign stuff as well as just... I mean, some of it does in that the things you have to do to earn boons or avoid getting burdens are different because they replaced cards in the encounter deck or altered things. But in general, I think, you know, putting in extra Nightmare burdens could have been a thing. Anyway, there is nothing like that, certainly in this quest. So, unlike... I'm going to do the opposite of what I did for my non-Nightmare Line Unbroken campaign. I'm going to take Mr. Underhill and Gandalf's Delay, because, I mean, I feel like they're the safer options. Obviously, you have here 2 cards which are shuffled into the encounter deck, so that's unpredictable, whereas 2 that are just automatically in play at the start, so that is more predictable. And for Nightmare, I'm more inclined to take the more predictable options. But also in particular, the ring draws them causes enemies to engage the first player, and that is potentially an issue for me. Every other round, enemies engaging this player, not a problem at all. Enemies engaging this player, definitely a problem. This deck is not supposed to engage enemies because Haldir wants to do his thing. And then Gandalf's Delay versus Gildor Inglorian. There's a lot of stuff that I want to be fitting into these decks. So while it's fun, trying to make the most use of Gildor Inglorian by including Shadow of the Past to keep sticking him back on the top of the deck, it's just one more thing I would have to try and fit into these decks, which would be difficult. Whereas, on the other hand, we have... whereas on the other hand we have Mr. Underhill. And being able to cancel an attack early on, given that, I have Bjorn as an early game defense option. Obviously, he could have taken some hits. He didn't in this game, but he could have. And I have feints and things. But my main intended way of avoiding being killed by enemies is Denethor needs to become a 6 defense sentinel with a shield and Arwen, and Haldir needs to be strong enough to just kill everything before it can attack. Both of those require a certain amount of setup, so having one more bit of attack cancellation that's definitely available right at the start of the game, very useful. And of course, Gandalf's Delay, I mean, this deck has 6 cards left in it. This deck has 1 card left in it. My draw is not a problem. So, I mean, having 1 less card, it's at the very start of the game, which is the point at which it matters the most, but it's still something that I feel pretty comfortable dealing with. So, that begins my Line Unbroken Nightmare campaign. I will, for the Nightmare campaign, be skipping over the 2 extra quests of the Old Forest and Fog on the Barrow Downs, partly because, of course, there's no Nightmare version of them, since they were special event quests, and also because, since there's no Nightmare version of them, I've already done them, and so I feel pretty comfortable saying, yeah, these decks, or variants of these decks, could beat those quests just fine. Which means that in practice, because you get boons out of those 2 quests, doing those quests would actually, in the long run, make the campaign easier for me, because I would have Old Bogey Stories and Hoton Bombadil available to me in the campaign pool. So, in the spirit, I feel like it's potentially in the spirit of Nightmare campaign to skip them and thus make it harder, because I won't have those 2 extra boons. So, next up will be Nightmare Knife in the Dark. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you for watching again, and goodbye.